Welcome back to English Podcast Go. I'm Cyrus, and each episode brings you closer to confident English. Let's jump into today's episode.
Okay, let's get into this. We've all been there, haven't we? Trying to break some habit.
Oh, definitely.
Maybe it's, just automatically grabbing your phone when you're bored or reaching for a snack you don't really need, or maybe something heavier.
Right.
And it just feels like this constant, really exhausting battle, like you're trying to force your own mind,
Yeah.
willing yourself to pay attention or just stop doing the thing.
Mhm.
And, well, more often than not, that whole willpower thing, it just doesn't stick, does it?
Yeah, it often falls short.
So today we're doing a deep dive. We're looking into why habits get so deeply wired into us.
Yeah, the mechanics behind it.
Exactly. And maybe more importantly, we're exploring this surprisingly simple, almost counterintuitive way to actually break them.
Okay.
Our source material for this is a really insightful TED Talk. It's by Judson Brewer, called A Simple Way to Break a Bad Habit.
Brewer's work. Good stuff.
Yeah. So our mission here is to really get to the core of the habit mechanism he describes. Understand why our usual tactics, like willpower, often fail.
Right.
And then reveal this unexpected twist he offers. A path to change that doesn't really rely on grit or brute force.
Interesting. Not the usual approach.
Not at all. So get ready, because you're going to learn how something as simple as, curiosity might actually be a much stronger tool than willpower.
Curiosity. Yeah.
And what a smoker discovering that cigarettes taste like, and I quote, stinky cheese and chemicals can teach all of us about changing our behavior.
That's quite the description. Stinky cheese.
Isn't it? Sets the stage. So where does this all start, this habit loop?
Well, what's really fascinating is just how ancient this learning process is. It's incredibly conserved through evolution. Meaning we see it even in organisms with really basic nervous systems. It's fundamental reward-based learning.
Yeah.
Positive and negative reinforcement.
Okay, so like the real basics of learning.
The absolute basics. Think about it like a simple loop. First, there's a trigger. Maybe your stomach rumbles.
Okay, hunger.
Right. Your brain registers need food, survival. Then comes the behavior. You find food, you eat it.
Got it.
And then you get the reward. The food tastes good. Your body signals, yes, that was good. Needs met.
Satisfaction.
Exactly. And that lays down a memory trace. It reinforces the connection.
Yeah.
See the trigger, do the behavior, get the reward. So next time that trigger happens.
Your brain says, hey, remember what worked last time?
Precisely. Trigger, behavior, reward, over and over.
Okay, that makes perfect sense for, finding berries or running from a saber-toothed tiger back in the day. Survival stuff.
Absolutely.
But clearly our brains got, maybe a little too good at it.
You could say that. They did. Our prefrontal cortex, the more thinking, planning part of the brain.
Yeah, the smart part.
Supposedly. Well, it's incredibly creative. And it starts applying this same basic loop to all sorts of other things. It might connect dots like, hey, feeling stressed. Remember how eating that chocolate cake made you feel a bit better last time? Maybe try that again.
So the trigger isn't just physical hunger anymore. It's an emotion, like stress.
Exactly. The trigger shifts from physical need to an emotional state, like stress or sadness or boredom. The behavior is still eating, maybe, and the reward is that temporary relief or pleasure.
Same loop, just different input.
Same loop, different prompt. Or think about social stuff. Maybe you felt awkward as a teenager. We've all been there.
Oh, yeah.
You saw the quote-unquote cool kid smoking. Your brain might forge an association. Trigger feeling uncool, wanting to fit in. Behavior smoking. Reward maybe feeling accepted or just less awkward for a moment.
Or just looking cool like the Marlboro Man ads tried to
Yeah,
sell.
so that's the power of association. Connecting smoking not just to the nicotine buzz, but to an identity, a feeling. That link gets reinforced every time.
So the trigger can be external, like seeing food, or internal, like feeling bored or anxious, or even social, like wanting to belong. And each time you run through that trigger behavior reward cycle, the path just gets deeper, more automatic, like a well-worn trail in the woods.
Perfectly put. And that is how this incredibly efficient survival mechanism, designed to help us find food and avoid danger, can lead us straight into habits that are, profoundly harmful.
Wow.
We're using the same neural pathways for finding calories as we do for developing habits like smoking or stress eating or endless scrolling, things that are now huge drivers of preventable disease and, frankly, unhappiness worldwide.
Right. And it feels like the rational part of our brain knows this stuff is bad for us. We try to use willpower, that cognitive control. Just stop.
The just say no approach.
Yeah. But as you pointed out, and as the source material highlights, that often fails us, especially when we're stressed or tired or overwhelmed.
It does. That prefrontal cortex, our seat of cognitive control, is actually one of the first things to go offline when we're under significant stress.
So when we need it most, it kind of checks out.
Pretty much. We default back to those older, more ingrained habit loops because they're energy efficient, they're automatic.
Okay, so if fighting it head on with willpower isn't the answer, especially when we're vulnerable, what is? How do we actually interrupt something so fundamental, so wired in?
And this is where Brewer's work, the source material, offers that really intriguing shift in perspective. It's quite different.
Okay, I'm listening.
Instead of trying to force the brain to stop or to pay attention differently through sheer effort, what if you leveraged the very learning process that built the habit, but crucially, with a different focus?
Leverage the loop itself. How?
The proposal is, well, simple sounding. Become intensely curious.
Curious.
Yes. Curious about what is actually happening in your immediate experience while you're engaging in the habit, or even just feeling the urge.
Curious instead of controlling. That sounds really counterintuitive, and maybe, forgive me, a bit too simple. Like, just be curious about smoking.
It does sound simple, almost naive, I get that. But think about the examples Brewer gives. In the research mentioned in the talk, they work with people really struggling to quit smoking.
Right. People who'd probably tried willpower many times.
Exactly. Multiple failed attempts. With this mindfulness-based approach, they weren't told to fight the urge. In fact, sometimes they were even instructed to smoke.
Wait, they told smokers to smoke.
Yes, but, and this is the key with a very specific intention, to be intensely, objectively curious about the experience of smoking itself. Pay really close attention.
Okay, so they weren't stopping the behavior, at least not initially. They were changing how they related to it, paying attention differently.
Precisely. Shifting the relationship through awareness. And what happened? What did they observe when they really paid attention?
This is the stinky cheese part.
This is the stinky cheese part. One participant had that amazing realization: mindful smoking smells like stinky cheese and tastes like chemicals. Y-U-C-K.
Wow. So she obviously knew intellectually smoking was bad, right? That's why she wanted to quit.
Of course. Intellectually, cognitively, she knew all the health risks. But by bringing that curious awareness, that non-judgmental attention to the actual lived experience of smoking in that moment.
She discovered something new.
On a deep, visceral level, she discovered it was genuinely unpleasant. Right here, right now.
That moves it from some abstract idea, this is bad for my health down the road, to an immediate, tangible, wow, this tastes awful right now.
Yes, that's the crucial shift. Brewer calls it moving from head knowledge to body knowledge. From knowing it in your brain to knowing it, as he says, in your bones.
Knowing it in your bones, I like that.
And that is the point where the perceived reward structure of the habit starts to crumble. The brain updates its information. It starts to become genuinely disenchanted with the behavior.
Disenchantment, that's a great word for it. It's like the magic spell is broken. The reward the brain predicted just isn't matching the actual reality of the experience when you look closely.
Precisely. Our willpower, that cognitive control from the prefrontal cortex, it's useful, but it's easily overwhelmed, especially by stress, like we said. You default to the old loops. But disenchantment, that bypasses the need for constant mental policing. When you truly see and feel and understand what you're actually getting from the habit in the moment, whether it's stinky cheese or just a fleeting momentary relief followed by guilt, the motivation to do it just weakens naturally. You're not forcing yourself to stop. You just become genuinely less interested. The appeal fades.
So this kind of mindfulness, it isn't really about trying to be calm or blissed out or achieving some special state.
Not necessarily, no.
It's just about seeing reality more clearly. Maybe seeing the habit for what it truly is for the first time.
That's a fantastic way to put it. It's about being willing to turn toward the experience, the urge, the craving, the behavior itself with an open, curious mind. Instead of automatically reacting or pushing it away or indulging it mindlessly.
Like becoming your own inner scientist.
Exactly. Just observing the data points, the sensations, the thoughts, the actual taste without judging them, just noticing.
And you mentioned curiosity. That itself feels different than fighting an urge, doesn't it? Fighting feels tense, effortful. Curiosity feels lighter, maybe even rewarding in itself.
It absolutely does feel different. Curiosity has this inherent quality of openness, of interest. It feels good to learn. And when you approach something like a craving with curiosity, You start to notice it's not this huge, monolithic, overwhelming thing that people imagine. You might observe the physical sensations, maybe a tightness here, a restlessness there.
You okay?
You see the thoughts that arise, and you notice they're just sensations. They're just thoughts. And they come and they go. They wax and wane.
So curiosity kind of breaks down the big scary monster of craving into smaller, more manageable pieces.
Yes, into components of physical and mental experience that you can actually observe without being swept away. It shifts you from feeling clobbered by the craving to simply observing the experience of craving.
Which helps you step out of that automatic, almost fear-driven reactive pattern, that trigger behavior reward loop running on autopilot, and step into a mode of simply being with the experience, observing it.
Yes, moving from reacting to it to just being present with it, seeing it clearly.
Okay, it sounds compelling, but is there solid evidence this actually works? Beyond anecdotes like the stinky cheese.
Oh, yes, there is. The source material, the talk, mentions studies showing mindfulness training can be significantly effective. One randomized controlled trial found it was actually twice as good as the American Lung Association's gold standard treatment cognitive behavioral therapy for helping people quit smoking.
Twice as good. That's substantial.
It really is. So it's not just a nice philosophical idea. It has tangible, measurable results in changing really tough habits.
And is there any understanding of what's happening in the brain when people do this? Is there a neuroscience connection?
Yeah, they're starting to map this out. Brewer's research and others looks at brain activity, often using fMRI. They look at experienced meditators, people practiced in this kind of awareness.
But what do they see?
They see changes in activity in parts of what's called the default mode network. This network is often associated with self-referential thought, mind wandering, kind of the brain's baseline chatter.
Okay.
And there's a specific hypothesis focusing on a region called the posterior cingulate cortex, or PCC. It seems to be involved not just in, say, experiencing a craving, but specifically in getting caught up in it.
Caught up, meaning?
Meaning when the craving feels like like it completely takes over your sense of self, and you feel compelled to act, that feeling of being hijacked.
Ah, okay. I know that feeling.
Right. And what they found is that when people practice this curious awareness, when they just notice the craving and kind of let go of being caught up, that PCC activity seems to quiet down.
Interesting. So curious awareness helps us kind of disengage from the neural trap.
Yeah.
It helps us step back from being hijacked by the craving loop itself.
That seems to be the idea, yes.
Yeah.
It helps break that cycle of getting sucked in. And, it's interesting how this understanding is even being built into modern tools.
Like what?
Like apps and online programs designed to teach these mindfulness techniques. It's almost ironic, isn't it?
How so?
Using the very technology smartphones that often fuels our distraction and feeds into these automatic habit loops.
Right, the constant checking.
Using that technology to actually deliver the tools of curious awareness right to people's fingertips, often right when the urge hits.
Using the trigger device to deliver the alternative behavior.
Sort of. The idea is maybe to create a new reward loop. So instead of trigger, feeling bored or anxious, behavior, mindlessly check phone, reward, fleeting distraction, maybe more anxiety.
Yeah.
It could become. Trigger, feeling bored or anxious. Behavior, get curious about the actual physical sensation of boredom or anxiety. Reward, maybe learning something new about yourself, feeling a sense of insight, or just the intrinsic reward of curiosity itself, feeling a bit more free from that automatic pull.
Replacing the old loop with a more beneficial one based on awareness.
That's the potential.
Okay, wow. That's a really helpful journey we've just taken there. We started by looking at that fundamental habit loop, trigger, behavior, reward.
Yeah, how it's this ancient survival mechanism.
Right, but how our clever brains leverage it for all sorts of habits, including the ones that really don't serve us well.
The harmful ones.
And we explored why our usual strategy, just gritting our teeth and using willpower, that cognitive control, why that so often fails us, especially when we're stressed or tired.
Because that part of the brain tends to check out under pressure.
Exactly. And then we dove into this powerful alternative presented in Brewer's work, not fighting the habit.
No, not fighting, but cultivating this curious, open, non-judgmental awareness.
Right. Awareness of the actual in-the-moment experience of the behavior or the urge and its immediate results, supported by mindfulness practice.
Yeah, paying close attention.
And we talked about how that curious awareness leads to what you called disenchantment.
That's the key outcome, yeah.
That deep, knowing it in your bones understanding that the predicted reward just isn't there or isn't worth it, which allows you to naturally let go.
The appeal just fades. You don't need to force it so much.
Because it's just Less appealing when you see it clearly.
Exactly. And reinforcing how curiosity itself feels rewarding, how it helps break down those big, scary cravings into just manageable sensations and thoughts.
Shifting us from being on autopilot, reacting all the time.
To simply being present with what's actually happening.
And we even touched on the evidence. Pretty compelling stuff, like that study showing mindfulness training being twice as effective as the gold standard therapy for quitting smoking.
Right, significant results.
And that intriguing hint from brain science about awareness potentially quieting down those brain regions linked to getting totally swept away by craving.
Yeah, the PCC findings. Early days, but fascinating.
Okay.
So, considering this whole deep dive, thinking about how curiosity and awareness can gently, almost subversively, dismantle even really deeply ingrained habits just by revealing what we truly get from them.
Let's leave our listeners with a thought. Think about one small, maybe non-essential habit in your own life. Could be anything. Maybe it is mindlessly checking your phone whenever there's a gap, or reaching for that particular snack when you're bored, not hungry.
Just a small one to start.
Yeah. What might happen if the very next time that urge arises, you just paused? Just for a second. And instead of automatically acting, you just got really curious.
Curious about what specifically?
Curious about the physical sensations in your body in that exact moment. What does the urge feel like? Curious about the thoughts swirling in your mind, and curious about the actual immediate outcome and feeling if you do the behavior right then and there. What does it really deliver?
Just observing without judgment.
Exactly. What might you genuinely learn about that habit, about your own experience that maybe you didn't consciously know before? What might that curiosity reveal?